The quarterbacks at the top of our rankings right now, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Tom Brady. Sean, I'm going to kick it to you first because, as already established, Raybon doesn't even have rankings at this point. Sean, who are you high on this week? Keeping in mind, of course, that now we have 6 games for Wild Card Weekend. I think Super Wild Card Weekend. It is very originally being dubbed instead of the 4 that we have had in previous seasons.
Yeah, so I'm high on Josh Allen for this slate. He's 7,500. Obviously, has one of the highest ceilings on the entire slate, if not the highest. But he's established a pretty high floor this year as well, so we could trust him in cash games. He's pretty much matchup proof. So this matchup against Indy, while it's not as imposing as it was earlier in the season, I think he'll be able to overcome it. He has John Brown back, which is huge. He should be getting Cole Beasley back, so he'll have all his receivers healthy. And I mean, just look at last week. He was able to put up 224 yards and 3 touchdowns in pretty much a half of action against the Dolphins defense when they were actively trying to win the game. That was the most week 17 DFS logic thing I've ever seen, by the way. So yeah, I'll be all over Josh Allen here for this shorter 6-game slate.
All right. And another guy that I'm high on who was in our top 3, Lamar Jackson. Very original to say that I'm high on Lamar Jackson, but he was fantastic in 2019 MVP season, disappointed in the first half of 2020, but since returning, since his activation from the COVID-19 list, he's pretty much been his 2019 MVP self with the fantasy production that we've seen out of him. He's at his best when he's a favorite, at least against the spread, tends to do pretty well on the road. And he's going against a Tennessee defense that is one of the worst in the league. So certainly I see Josh Allen and why you would be high on him. I also have Josh Allen in my top 3, have him number 1 for the slate, but Lamar Jackson is a very close number 2 for me. It's just depending on maybe the site that you are at, where you need to save salary for DFS. I can definitely see a case for going with Lamar instead of Josh Allen. Raybon, who are you high on for Wild Card Weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I love, obviously those are 2 quarterbacks at the top, but Josh Allen, I think number 1, just because you look at that Colts defense and, even last week, they gave up 26 of 42, 261 with 2 touchdowns to Mike Glennon. They've given up multiple scores passing 4 weeks in a row to close out the season. They've given up 316 or more yards in 4 of the last 5 to close out the season. But a guy that's a little further down, because I think Allen and Jackson are kind of in a tier of their own. It's going to be hard to go away from them, but in tournaments, obviously you're going to have to. I think Ryan Tannehill is really interesting. That Ravens defense is really good, but you already talked about their defense is straight awful. And Ryan Tannehill, he has multiple touchdowns in I believe it's 86% of his starts as a tight end going back to last season when he took over. So you could easily see this game turning into a shootout. And Tannehill, because of how good Arthur Smith has been calling plays and how good that offense is, they can score even on good defenses. So I think Tannehill is a guy that, especially if you plan to go with some Jackson stacks in your tournament portfolio to bring it back and make a few lineups with Tannehill as well, because you're saving about $1,000, $1,200 over Jackson and $900 on Allen. So right Tannehill as the QB3.
Yeah, and Raymond, to your point about that game, it has the highest total on the slate, pretty easily around 54 and a half, 55, depending on where you're looking. Right now, I see actually 53 and a half at BetMGM, but I'm imagining that will probably move up. And so certainly we could see a lot of points in that game, and the over, I mean, as we've talked about on this show, talked about on the Convince Me show that we do on the weekends, I mean, the over for Tennessee is just almost an automatic at this point. So certainly a lot of points that we could see there. Sean, who is a quarterback you are low on for Wild Card Weekend?
Well, I feel like I've been low on Russell Wilson for about a month or 2 now, and I faded him last week, and no regrets here. Seattle's just a run-heavy team now. A lot of that has to do with their defense playing much, much better now. But you could certainly see this game script against the John Wolford-led Rams could be a very low-scoring one. The 42.5 total is the lowest of the weekend. So I think that's going to rob Wilson of, the ceiling we saw in the earlier part of the season. That is long gone. Wilson's usually a lock for 200 passing yards, a passing touchdown, and 30 yards on the ground. So I will be passing that up at 6,700. Maybe we'll find a situation later on in the playoffs where he might be forced to throw a bit, but this isn't one of those games. So I will be fading him again this week.
One guy I'm relatively low on is Drew Brees. I have him ranked number 7. Now it's ostensibly a good situation for him in that he's a big home favorite, playing indoors. One of the few games this weekend that is indoors, and so I could see people theoretically wanting to target that. Brees is a home favorite, like that is his smash spot, but his wide receiver unit is incomplete, and he has a pretty tough matchup against the Bears, and he's Drew Brees at this point. So I don't know if I really would want to be investing in him when I think there are other quarterbacks who have similar price range and probably higher upside at this point. So Brees is someone I am definitely staying away from this weekend. Raybon, who are you low on?
I don't know how I went third and no one mentioned either Washington quarterback. I mean, Alex Smith and Taylor Heineke. Right. No, but it's not. It's in tournaments. I mean, there's only 12 guys. I'm sure somebody's going to touch, they'll get like 2% ownership. But this is, even if Alex Smith were to play the whole game, no, because he doesn't run. He's run 5 times all year for 3 yards. And Heineke's just awful. So, those two guys I think are the two for me, but going with a quarterback that's not a Washington quarterback, it's Baker Mayfield for me, because we know how he plays against pressure. This Pittsburgh defense, yes, it's banged up compared to what they were, at their peak this season, but they still finished about 6 percentage points ahead of any other team in the league in terms of generating pressure on the quarterback. Baker Mayfield well outside the top 32 signal callers in terms of passer rating under pressure. So, this is a nightmare, just a nightmare matchup for him. And now you're looking at, the head coach being out as well.
Yeah, Raybon, we didn't mention Alex Smith because we're not like Happy Gilmore out here playing dodgeball with grade school kids, right? It's like Alex Smith. Come on, we're not dunking on him or anything.
Right.
We probably should.
Come back player of the year. Put some respect on his name.
Fenn Roethlisberger.
All right, let's get to the prop part of the show. By the way, everyone should be sure to check out the Fantasy Labs player prop tool, where the props with a bet quality of 10 have a 60% win rate over the past 2 years. And of course, when player props are posted, you can bet them at BetMGM. Sean, give us the quarterback prop.
Let's go with Lamar Jackson rushing yards, because that's always the most fun stat to project. Right now I have his over under at 83.5. Where are you guys on him?
Ooh, that is high.
Yeah, I know.
I'm normally the over donkey, but I'm taking the under in this instance. Your line is so high relative to what I have. I have 62.5. Your line is so high relative to my line that it makes me think there's something massively wrong with my line, and I need to go back and look at it.
I'm going to go under too, for the reason that I think they try to keep him in the pocket. I think, and that might come back to burn him, but I just think that's going to be the game plan against them. It was in the last playoff matchup. Unfortunately, they ended up running 95 plays. So Lamar he literally had 59 pass attempts and 20 rushing attempts. So, that was just I don't think you can kind of use that game as a total 1-for-1 here. Obviously, Dean Pease, the defensive coordinator for the Titans last season, is gone, but I do think that will be the game plan. Keep him in the pocket. And that's just a high line relative to, I think, what he's done this season anyway. So yeah, I'll go under, but it's not comfortable.
Right. Yeah. Just good luck to anybody that bets the under on this week. I think that the sports books will probably set it in the low 80s if I had to guess. So I think this should be pretty close. And yeah, I don't think I'll even bet it if it's this high.
Yeah, I'm looking at what Lamar has done since he returned from being on the COVID list in week 13, and averaging 86 yards per game. since then. So like he's basically in, his peak Lamar form at this point. So I probably need to adjust my line. It's probably impacted more by what he did in the first 10 games of the season. And, in that 10-game stretch, he had 57.5 yards per game.
Right.
So, over the past month, he's been a different Lamar. I just, I don't know what sample to privilege, if I should be looking at the whole season or looking more at what he's done in the past 5 games. So I don't know, Sean, like, obviously it seems like you're focused more on what he's done recently.
Yeah, that's a good point. When he came back from COVID, he's been a different runner. You could tell he's been playing with a smile on his face. So I've been waiting the last 5 games a bit heavier with him. But like you said, mid-season, I remember we were both kind of fading him and saying he wasn't even a QB1, but he's a different Lamar now. He's probably not putting as much on his shoulders when it comes to the passing game, and it seems like when they're in must-win games, he just runs more. So that's kind of going into it, but it does seem like he's trending way up when it comes to rushing stats.
Yeah, that's a good line. I'm gonna have to think about that one a little bit, and I will be curious to see where the books open with his line.
What do you guys think of the Titans defense? Because I'm looking at their numbers and they held Watson to 12 yards.
Yeah.
Last week they held Josh Allen to 18. Early in the season they held Watson to 26, which so they had Jackson at 51.
Yeah.
In week 11.
Yeah, they don't generate pressure, so maybe it doesn't create.
Everyone's open, even Dez.
It doesn't create a break the play and scramble outside of the pocket and run. So that's a good point. But I think they'll regress in that category this week.
I'm gonna parlay the Lamar Jackson rushing under with the Dez Bryant reception over.
There you go. Perfect.
Okay, if there's even a line for him,
right. Oh, Miles Boykin, whatever bum they throw out there.
Yeah.